Hey, guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Allison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers, and we are here. Look at the cheerful person I have on my show today. I am thrilled to have this woman, Keziah Bussell. Did I say it right? Keziah Bussell. And this woman is going to change your life if you want your life changed. And I'm going to explain. I want you to put your seatbelt on and I want you to really listen, because she is going to tell you a story. And it's a story of triumph, and it's a story of overcoming. And it's a story that will tell you about how you can take your life and anything that's happening in your life, and you can transform it into something incredible. And I'm asking you to just really hone in and listen to her. She is a spark of life. And when you're done with this podcast, if you look for the pearls and the different moments of wisdom that she provides, what's going to happen is you're going to put that in your toolbox and you will be a different person. So without any further ado, I'm going to explain who this woman is, kinda. So Keziah is a gymnastics coach. She's been doing that for 15 years, or is it longer? Is it longer?
It's about 15 years. I started when I was 15 years old. Yep.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So half of her life, she's been a gymnastics coach. And what I thought would be much more appropriate than me doing a whole shebang about her, I want to explain to you how I know her, because I barely know her. And after our preliminary meeting prior to this recording, I feel like she is just a spark that will change you. So she belongs to Arate with me, which you guys know who follow me, that Arate is a group of entrepreneurs who are dedicated to a lifestyle and core beliefs that are completely loyal to the concept that Ed Milet and Andy Frisella have, that we are going to change the world of business, the face of business, to being a force for good on earth. And we are going to take our struggles and we're going to make something incredible out of them. So with what I'd like to do now is to share this beautiful soul with you. So Keziah, also called Kaz, can you tell us your backstory? Can you tell us where you came from and where you are now?
Absolutely. When I was born, my birth mother was 16 and she chose to give me up for adoption. My adoptive mother had cancer, but she lied to the adoption agency because she was so desperate for a baby before she died. I was basically her dying wish to have a baby. So my adoptive parents adopted me from birth, and my birth mom or adopted mom passed away whenever I was 18 months old. My adoptive dad got remarried to my adoptive stepmom, and she was very abusive to me. And the abuse started right away, but he got her pregnant. And so then he was trapped because she was pregnant with twins. And she is such an abuser. She is such an abusive person that he knew he had to protect his other children, even at the cost of me. So I lived in that home with them until I was 10 years old. when finally I had an elementary school teacher call CPS, and CPS kind of stepped in, but my adoptive dad worked for the city. My stepmom was very manipulative and abusive. And I don't know all of the facts because I was 10, and because CPS does not give you all of the facts when you're 10. I just know that I went to live with my grandparents, so the parents of my mom who died. I got moved in with them. They got custody of me. And my grandfather.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
There's a reason that I want to ask this question, because as in our counseling centers, we have situations at times where there's young children who are in bad situations. And sometimes when CPS is called in, there's a concern of how traumatic that is for the child. But then sometimes it's a relief for the child. So the reason that I'm asking this question is I want to know, for you, did it feel frightening of the thought of being removed from the home, or did it feel like a relief? Because sometimes children who are abused attach to the people who are abusing them, and sometimes they want to get out. And I just was wondering if you could tell us that.
Absolutely. At that point in my life, the abuse started turning less physical. Like, it was still very physical abuse, but because I was getting older, she was starting to really use my emotions against me, and just evil. She's just an evil person. And so when CPS came, I tried to tell everything, but they interviewed me in front of her. They did not interview me away from her. So I was like saying things, and she would be like, no, that's not what happened. What happened was this, it just, she's a very emotional child. And of course I was crying, and she would be like, she's a very emotional child. She's confused, she's adopted. She doesn't feel like she fits into our family. So that's why, so she was using my adoption and my mom dying as a way to manipulate CPS. And this was a very small town in Texas. So it's not like, I don't know if you know much about like Southern small towns, it's all a conspiracy theory. And so it's not like there are real checks and balances. And I know people are trying to do good, but it's still, I feel like even in my situation and in most CPS situations, everybody's hands are tied. CPS has their hands tied. People trying to help, hands are tied. The abusers really get away with a lot for a really long time, because you can't just come in and like unalive them.
But I worked in that field, and I would see over and over again that the CPS workers did not know really what to look for, and they would do things like that. And you need to have the child separate and be able to hear more than, because kids are afraid to tell. Did you feel afraid?
At that point, I did not, because I was in 4th or 5th grade, and CPS actually had just come to our school and showed us a video of what child abuse looks like. I didn't know I was being abused until that time, because they showed this video, and it was like, if this is happening to you, you need to talk to a trusted adult. You need to seek help. And I was sitting on the gym floor, and I was like, holy shit, this is happening to me, and this isn't normal. And I was like, it like all started clicking and making sense to me. I still didn't know what to do, because I didn't have a trusted adult. I had like my grandparents who I would go to their house on the weekends, but like, what were they going to do? And so as a 10-year-old, I was sitting here, like kind of going over my options. What's anybody going to do? That who's going to believe me? Because they're not, because she is so manipulative, and because she is so evil, nobody's going to believe me. So it's up to me to fight as much as I can. So I really started like fighting then. So for me, I just don't think that CPS workers are trained well enough in most cases. And then I also don't think that they're paid enough to do what they're doing and to deal with the crap that they deal with. I volunteered for CASA in my early adulthood, and I worked very closely with children who had been removed from their homes, and it's always a shit show, no matter what. And so I don't think that, like, for me, I wanted out. I wanted to be saved, but nobody believed me because I was just a poor, broken, adopted little girl that doesn't have a place in this world.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved in with my grandparents, so my grandfather was a deacon in the Southern Baptist Church, and he was a leader. And at this point, I'm broken. Like, I am a broken little girl. I'm not normal. I don't have normal behaviors. I don't have anything. I'm just trying to get my next meal. I'm just trying to survive when I move in with them, and they throw money at me. And my grandfather was sexually abusive towards me and very emotionally manipulative and sexually abusive. And of course, like, going to the Southern Baptist Church, purity culture was raging in the early 2000s. Purity culture was all the thing. Like, you need a purity ring. You got to make a promise to God that you're not going to have sex before you're married. Like, sex is bad. Sex is bad. You don't need to know anything about sex. Just don't do it. And you're evil. You're a chewed up piece of gum if you have sex before you're married. You're a wadded up piece of paper. But the people telling me this were the people who were doing it to me.
Yeah.
So I was already dirty because my grandfather made me dirty, a chewed up piece of gum. So when I was 13 years old, or 12, I was about 12, I started fighting back with him, and I found my voice. And
how'd you do that? How did that happen?
I don't know. I just woke up one day from a night that he had abused me. And I just woke up one day and said, no, I'm done. And that day, he started being like emotionally manipulative to me and like, you know, you're going to be nothing. You're just going to be barefoot and pregnant, you know, all the shit that abusers say. And I turned to him and I just, like, I broke. I was like, you don't know anything. Like, I started fighting back with him. He got violent with me and he pushed me, but I'm 12 now and I'm not 5. So I started fighting back and I started hitting back. And when we got into this whole physical altercation, he left the house. My grandma was blaming me, like, you know how he is. You know that you just need to keep your mouth shut. It's like, I'm not doing that. I'm done keeping my mouth shut. But that was the moment he lost control over me. And looking back now, knowing what I know now, that was a very dangerous time for me. But I didn't know that the abuser losing control is dangerous for the person getting abused.
Yes, it is.
I only knew that I was fighting and I was going to fight until I died. Like, that's the only thing I knew, is that I wasn't going to go without a fight. So our daily lives were hell all the time. I would wake up, he would wake me up for school. So at this point, I'm not sleeping because I'm having flashbacks from my first home. I'm worried that my grandfather is going to abuse me. I'm not sleeping at all. I literally watch TV until I pass out at 4:00 in the morning on the couch. And then he comes and wakes me up at 6:00 for school. It's a fight. We're screaming, yelling, fighting. He drops me off at the school bus. I go to school. So I went to school at a town 15 minutes from my school because I was picked on at the school in our town. And I would sleep on the bus. I'd get to school and it was just so much going on that I couldn't even do school because I was trying to fight to survive. My grandmother put me in gymnastics whenever I was 7 to get me away from my abusive stepmom. So I always had gymnastics to go to. And I credit my gymnastics teacher, she's an amazing, amazing woman. She saved my life on more than one occasion because I had to be at the gym. And she would call if I wasn't there. She really took an interest in me as a person. Probably the first person in my entire life who did that. And that's probably why I love gymnastics so much. Aside from that, like, it is my thing. She really like poured into me. And I strive to be like her in my classes, like pouring into my students. So because I'm wild and crazy and I can't be controlled, my grandfather is talking to the people at his church, like the pastor and all this. And the secretary said, hey, I know the psychologist that fixed my son, because I'm the broken one. Remember, it's nobody else around me. I'm just a crazy, broken little girl. Mm-hmm. And he takes me to the psychologist, and I'm not having it. I was 13. I'm not having it. I sit there like this, staring at him for the first 5 sessions. I said nothing. And I know now what my grandfather was paying. And it was like $200 an hour. And I sat there and said nothing. And I still find joy in that he wasted $1,000 because I just sat there and did nothing. But the psychologist was actually pretty nice and pretty cool and started kind of helping me open up. And he suggested that I get in contact with my birth family because it was an open adoption. They had come to like my 7th birthday and maybe my 8th or 9th birthday. They had come to when I was still living with my abusive stepmom. But it wasn't really, like, it was really hard for them. But my birth parents ended up getting married and they had my siblings. So I reached out. I had my mom's number and I reached out to her, and she came and ate lunch with us, and she knew immediately. She knew what was going on.
She could tell.
Yeah. Because she had been in a similar situation. And I'm not going to share her story at all because it's hers. Okay. She had been in a similar situation, which is how she had babies so young. But she had married my dad, and I invited her to come visit me. She lived an hour away. So I invited her and my siblings to come visit me at my house. And she came to visit me, and she got all of her confirmations immediately, got her confirmations of what was going on in that household. And she manipulated a whole situation. She used her powers for good. She manipulated the whole situation to where I could come spend a weekend at their house with my dad. And her and my dad got in this huge fight because my dad is an all or nothing person. They know nothing about me. And my mom just knows that I need to be saved. My dad said, if she comes to this house, she's my daughter. That's it. She's my daughter or she's not my daughter. There's no in between. There's no gray area. I got goosebumps because my parents are amazing. So I show up that weekend and I found my people. There were people on this planet that are me. There are people that have my personality and that love me because I'm a human being and I deserve to be loved. And there was no manipulation. I didn't have to fight to be loved. So I started going back every weekend, and my parents got a hold of my phone and read some pretty nasty text messages between the teenage boys that I was talking to. Because, I mean, what was I taught? Yeah. How do I get love? Mm-hmm. I was taught that sex is love. So I had all these nasty messages from these boys because that's what teenage boys do. And my dad and my mom sat me down and said, are you doing this stuff? And I was like, I mean, no, like, I wasn't going to tell them anything. It's like, no, they just text me that and I just pretend it's not real, whatever. And they're like, this is a problem. Like, you're going down a path that is not good. This is a problem. So they try to handle it with my grandfather. My grandfather was like, well, she's just a slut. And my dad, bless his heart, did not kill my grandfather during any of these conversations. So I had a boyfriend at the time as well. And so at this point, I'm spending weekends with my birth parents and then weeks with my grandparents because I was still in school. And I had a boyfriend that came over and we were messing around outside, like on the side of the house. My grandpa walks around and catches us. And my grandpa starts laying into me, I knew it. You're going to wind up just like your mother. You're going to be pregnant at 16. You're going to be on drugs. You don't have anything. You're just a slut. And all these boys, like, you let them use you and abuse you, like laying into me. And I'm like, I have an escape now. I don't have to be here. He calls my parents immediately. My dad drives an hour and comes and gets me out of the situation. How my dad didn't just annihilate my grandfather, I have no idea. But my parents don't know. I didn't tell my parents about the sexual abuse until I was 19, 20. So they didn't have real confirmation of the abuse. My mom had very strong suspicions. But the way my grandfather was acting was because I wasn't with him anymore.
Yep. I have a question for you. Are you ready? This is my question. And this is to help other people. Okay, love? Because as you know, people who are abused do not often tell. And the thing that I repeatedly say on this show or whenever anybody who will listen to me is that anyone who's abused on any level, whether you're a child, if you're an adult, it doesn't matter. What ends up happening is that the nature of abuse, the only way it can live is through secrecy, and it has to stay in the dark. And one of the things, it is the nature of evil. And the way that it works is that if you are abused on any level, you absorb that abuse as shame, your own personal dirty shame, icky, horrible feeling about yourself as a human being. If we zoom out for 5 seconds as human beings, and we look at any child, we look at any person being abused, anyone, kids being bullied in school, if you interview millions of them, everyone will tell you that they didn't want to admit how they were being treated because it made them feel badly about who they are. So the real issue is that it's like, that's why I love having people like Kaz on my show, because Kaz is breaking the power of shame. We bring it out in the light without judgment. So now the thing about it is that because children who are sexually abused or physically abused somehow absorb the concept, the abnormal becomes normal, and they believe that they're the ones who are participating in it or causing it. So even if they have any experience in their own body, they turn against their body and hate their bodies for it. So I'm not putting that on you, Kaz. I'm just saying, I want people to know, anyone who's on this show who is abused or think that you even have a clue that someone is being abused. And this is like my middle, it's almost like this is like my advertisement in the middle. But basically what I want to say about this is that I used to have a thing that I did when I would speak in public, and it was called Not on My Watch. And that was the name of it. And I would go and speak publicly to adults anywhere and kids anywhere who would listen to me, because we put the onus on protecting children on children. And we ask children to protect themselves, and they cannot. So a child 10 years old in a setting with an expert and another parent is not equipped to answer the questions that they're being asked in order to protect themselves. So it is my job and it is your job. If you're listening and you're an adult and you live on this planet, keep your eyes open, because not on my watch is a commitment to saying, hey, guess what? If I see a kid and it doesn't feel right to me, I'm going to go further. And, one of the things that abusers look for are kids who are troubled, kids who are disheveled, kids who look depressed, kids whose hair isn't combed. When you see a kid like that, let's be the gymnastics teacher that Kaz had, who took an interest in her, because the more value you add to any troubled child's life, the more you illuminate the abuse, because then they have a backdrop of light in a dark place that shows them that there's more to life. So I hope I sound like I'm scolding you. It's just passion. So stop. I want anyone who's listening, wherever you are in your world. When I drive and I see kids, I notice. When I'm in a mall, I notice. I notice the way a man's talking to a kid. I notice, and if there's somebody abusing a kid, I'll walk right up to them. So who's going to protect these kids if we don't? The door's closed in that house. If we're not in the community doing something about it and being awake and aware in the now, shame on us. Okay, back to Kaz. I should have like commercial music behind it. Okay. So I just had to say that. Okay.
Yes.
So back to what you're saying. I just want to ask you, how come you didn't tell? I mean,
so it's funny because I'm not in trauma anymore. I'm not in a place of trauma, and I feel so far removed from those feelings that it's hard to even remember what I was thinking.
Yes.
But I do know for a fact, when I moved in with my parents, they got custody of me 15 years ago today.
I love that. It's such a great story.
Literally. So they got custody of me the week before I turned 15. So they, it was all survival at that point. It was all just like, let's get this girl into our home. I had siblings. Like, we were all just like a melting pot, like trying to all survive and get along and work through, because I had behaviors and their kids did not have behaviors. My siblings did not have trauma. So my parents are going through this and trying, like, my mom told herself for 15 years, I'm not her kid. And now all of a sudden I'm in her home. She's going through her feelings. My dad is like, this is my daughter. I've got to do everything I can to protect my daughter. But he has another daughter and 2 sons. And like, there's just so many aspects to this whole situation that in that time, it was about making sure that I could leave that house when I turned 18 and be okay. So we weren't trying to put my grandpa in jail. We weren't trying to get anybody in trouble. We were trying to save this little girl who, like you said, at the mall, my dad would have picked up immediately at the mall. He could look at me and say, you're going to be human trafficked, because it's written all over you. You are the 15-year-old girl alone at the mall with her friends that human traffickers look at and take. And they lived in a town where a major interstate goes through. So human trafficking in that town is bad, and it happens a lot. And I was the kind of girl that human traffickers find at the mall, because any boy that would show me an ounce of attention, I was all over it. Yeah. All over it. So I didn't tell because I didn't know I needed to. I didn't know how. And I didn't accept what was going on with my grandfather. So you talked earlier, you said that sometimes victims feel like they're willing participants of the act.
Yeah.
And that's something people don't talk about at all. Did I enjoy it? No, I didn't enjoy it because I knew it was wrong. But he was a grown man who knew what felt good on a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true even for a child. It is true. In my therapy that I had, I feel like, I don't remember, but I feel like I was abused before my grandfather. I was sexually abused before my grandfather, but I don't know and I don't remember. And we could never pull that up in my therapy, even though we tried just to get everything out. So part of the shame that I had was like, I liked it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it happened all the time. Yeah. It wasn't a traumatic, like he didn't take me and like throw me on the bed and was traumatic. It was very like under the table. It was very like, did that really happen or did it not happen? Yeah. And so as a child, like I'm a child, I'm 10 years old. Yeah. The first memory I have of this, I'm 10 years old. But it happened way before I was 10. I can almost guarantee it was happening before I could remember because it was so seamless. And so going through all of that and coming in with my parents, you know, my parents aren't saying abstinence only. My parents are saying, listen, there are consequences to having sex at your age. There are consequences to, because the whole reason that the leverage my parents had to get custody of me was that I was caught fooling around with my boyfriend. That is what my parents used to get me in their home. My parents also made it my decision. I joke with my dad that he manipulated me, but it was still my decision. To go back a little bit, he showed me a yearbook of the kids' school that they went to. They went to a private Christian school, and he was like, I was like, oh, this looks cool. This looks so fun. I would love to go there. And my dad was like, well, you'd have to live with us. And I was like, all right, I'll do it.
I love it.
And like changed my life in a snap. Yes. But this was shortly after I was caught with my boyfriend. This was shortly, like the text messages, the boyfriend thing, all that all happened. It feels like at one time. Mm-hmm. So my parents are going, oh my gosh, she's going to get pregnant. Like, we don't want her to get pregnant like my mom did because they wanted a different life for me. Yeah. So they like double down on security. Yeah. They double down on like my cell phone goes into their room at night. We're changing my path. And it was not hard, or it was not easy. It was very hard. Looking back, I'm like, I don't even know how any of us made it. It was so much in such a short, I lived with them from 15 to 18 and then I was out. Because can I just stop you for a minute, because it's something you touched on, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't get too far from it, because it was really powerful. And I want to make sure it's super clear. You know, when I ask you, how come you didn't tell? I already know that you didn't tell because you couldn't. And the reason, and then your answer was so incredible, because you're answering in the description of a 10-year-old girl who is being formed in this abuse and being hurt in so many ways. And what I just want to point out that I think is powerful, and you said that you never hear it, and that's why I want to say it here, because you said it out loud and no one says it. And I say it because I think that it can change and help another little girl somewhere, that it is not unnatural. It is the most natural thing for someone who is abusing someone to do something that's going to make their body respond to that abuse with a chemical experience, hormonal, whatever experience, tactile experience of pleasure, that then locks that child into the shame, and then feel confused and associate sex or anything intimate with ick, the connection between the two.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's what purity culture teaches. And
Yes.
so purity culture is already teaching me, like, I
Yes.
can't have sex until marriage. The deacon of the church is sexually abusing me and it feels good, but
Yes.
it's
You're
not
hot,
supposed
but
to
you're
feel
wrong.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's wrong. And so I can't tell this secret
Yep.
because it's wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't live with this, getting out because
Yes.
couldn't even comprehend any consequences to the actions because I was being abused my whole life. I didn't know anything was wrong.
Yep.
I knew that sex was wrong, but because it was my normal, because it was my life, it didn't feel like these major incidences were abusive and wrong, and it didn't feel like he could go to jail.
Yep.
For
Is he in jail?
No, he has passed away since.
Okay.
But I actually took care of him on his deathbed.
You did?
And I did
What'd you do?
because I was groomed I was the only living person to take care of them. So I was groomed.
Oh, you mean
like,
physically
in so
took
many
care?
different
Okay.
ways. Yeah. So I was groomed to take care of him and then my grandmother. So my grandmother couldn't take care of herself at all. And unfortunately, he did die first. He had cancer. I had just had my first son. I was in school, all this, and he's dying. So I drive an hour every day to the town that they live in to help take care of him. And when he got put on hospice, I took a week off of school and stayed with my grandma and took care of him until he died. And
did you ever confront him?
I did, because at that point I was married, I had a kid. And the greatest thing I ever did in his eyes was get married to my husband. Not the fact that I owned a home or a business before I got married, but the fact that I married a good man. That's what I was praised for. And on his deathbed, I said, I know what you did to me. And I know that you believe that if you ask God for forgiveness right now, that you will still go to heaven. And that's okay with me. But I know what you did to me. And he said, I am so sorry. Just please forgive me. And I just shrugged my shoulders because at that point I could not forgive him.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, he was unconscious and then he passed a couple days later. But he had the preacher over and prayed the Lord's Prayer again. I'm deconstructing from my religion. I'm a Christian. I still believe in God. But I'm going through a lot of things because some of the things we were taught, like you can open the Bible and say, like, the Bible did not say that. Okay. I don't know why you're preaching that in the pulpit. The Bible did not say that.
Yeah.
So this whole spiritual experience, I was in the room when he asked God to take away all of his sins, made me so angry.
Of course.
Because I can't, at this point in my life, I can't have sex with my husband.
Yep.
I cannot enjoy sex with my husband.
Yep.
Because having an orgasm makes me go back to that 10-year-old little girl in his bed.
Yep.
So the fact that he gets to go to heaven and I have to live here and I can't even enjoy the most basic human things.
Yep.
Really fucked with me.
I get it.
And then I had to take care of my grandma. And that was something that I didn't have the capacity for, but I had to because she had nobody. Oh, that was a wild ride too. And I'm not going to get into all of taking care of her because she's recently passed, but just my parents stepping in for those 3 years and pouring everything into me so that when I left the house at 18, I could function pretty okay. Like I was a functioning member of society. Sex still equaled love. I still sought attention from any man that would give it to me. A lot of heartbreaks during all of that time. But I got help. I've been in therapy for the majority of the last 10 years. Meeting my husband was something I never thought I would meet somebody like him. He definitely, I wouldn't say he saved me because I saved myself, but he definitely didn't hurt the saving process. It definitely didn't hurt that I have a supportive husband that watches me like crumble on the kitchen floor because I can't breathe, and he doesn't make me feel shame about it, you know? So my story really doesn't end at me turning 18, but
no, it doesn't. So let me ask you something. I'm gonna first of all, I think okay.
So that was a lot. I know that was a lot.
No, listen. Everything you're saying is so incredible, and what you've just done for so many people. I'm not even sure if you realize at this moment, but what I want to do, because I think I want to, I know I would love to have you on again to continue this story, but what I want to do now is I want you to tell people where you are today, because if we run out of time without your current story, then people don't know the hope. And that's what I want to happen. So look at the background of this woman's thing. Now, can you explain? So now you're going to come on again, and we're going to talk more about that. But you go through this healing process, right? Through EMDR and working through your trauma. And now, how did you end up here now?
So my husband and I moved to Michigan the week before COVID happened. And from Texas to Michigan, that was a culture shock because Texas was like COVID and Michigan was like COVID. And, you know, I'm not sharing any opinions here. I'm just going to share the real story is that it was a culture shock for me because I'm Texan, and being in a place where people aren't Texan was hard, especially during COVID. Nobody would rent me a space because of COVID. Michigan shut down completely. So I couldn't even like have a business. I was teaching English online. My husband was working. We weren't making any money. We just bought this beautiful home that we were going to lose because we can't pay the house payment. Thank God for COVID, because we got to do a forbearance because of COVID. And that saved our home until I could figure out something. I've been a gymnastics coach my whole life. I've been working online for the last year and a half teaching English. So I was like, I'm going to see if I could teach gymnastics online. So I found a platform called OutSchool, and you can teach anything on the platform. And I was like, I can teach gymnastics. If there's anything I can do in this life, is I can teach a front roll. And so I applied, I got denied 3 times. My 4th time I got approved. I had my first class, it filled up. I made $100 in 45 minutes, and I was like addicted. And I was like, I got to teach more classes because we're in the height of COVID now.
What is this called? What is this called that you got on? What is that?
So the platform is called OutSchool, and my business runs on OutSchool. But right now,
what is OutSchool?
It's basically a homeschool platform for parents who homeschool. You have live classes for your homeschool kids. But during COVID, OutSchool exploded because people were trying to find things for their kids to do because gym shut down. Everything shut down. So it grew my business in the online platform because I got on during COVID. Now I have teachers that teach under me. I have I'm running my whole business, and I'm selling courses now. So I'm selling just pre-recorded courses I'm almost finished filming those and getting those up and running and going. So there's been a lot going on here, but my healing came last October. I started having flashbacks. I was brushing my 4-year-old's hair. She was screaming because she's 4 and it hurts to get your hair brushed. And I was saying like, honey, it's okay. It's almost over. Sometimes to be pretty, it hurts, you know, all of this stuff. And it flashback. I was sitting in my stepmom's bathroom. She was beating me with the brush and I was screaming and I could smell the smell of that bathroom. I could smell her breath in my face because she never brushed her teeth. And I could smell like that foul smell. And I just take a step back from my daughter, drop the hairbrush, and I'm bawling. My 4-year-old turns around and says, Mommy, I did not mean to make you cry. I'm so sorry that I made you cry. And I was like, honey, it's not you. Please go get your daddy. Like, I'm like falling mid panic attack. Like I can't even function. That starts happening over and over and over. So for 3 weeks, I'm living with these flashbacks where I'm like walking into a room in my house, flashback. I'm laying in my bed. I can't sleep because I was having these flashbacks and they were real. It was happening to me all over again. Like it wasn't just, I was watching my trauma. I was feeling my trauma happen to me again. I'm 29 years old. I haven't been abused in 15 years, you know, like, and this trauma is coming back. And one day last October, I told my husband, I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And he was shocked, of course, and started crying. And he was like, you can't do this. You have your kids. And I always talk about how I feel like I was set up for failure as a child because I was set up to live a life without a mom. And those were the words my husband told me. He said, you're setting your kids up for failure if you're not here. You're setting me up for failure if you're not here. Because what am I going to do without my best friend? What am I going to do without you? And at the time, I was in my brain and I said, you're better off without me because you can't, this is what you get. You get a sick, broken woman who can't get out of bed. For 3 weeks, the only reason I got out of bed was to come into this office, teach gymnastics for 3 hours, and then I went back to bed. My husband literally ran the household for 3 weeks. He homeschooled, he cleaned, he did bedtime, he fed me, he took care of me. He ran everything for 3 weeks. And then I was like, obviously he can do it without me, so I'm not needed here. And so I had a plan. I said my goodbyes to my husband. I was like, I'm done. And he was like, no, you're not. You're not done. He said, I will put you in the car right now and take you to the hospital, or you can seek help within the next week. And if you don't, I'm taking you to the hospital. So the next day, I didn't know what to do. So I got online to an online counseling app and got medication, started therapy, and I did that rapid eye movement therapy. And in February of 2022, I graduated therapy. I was done taking my medication and I don't have flashbacks anymore. And I can brush my daughter's hair and I can cook dinner and I can sometimes wash a dish, but that's questionable. Dishes are hard, okay? But I can do things. I can function. Like I wake up in the morning, I work out. I quit drinking so heavily. I quit nicotine. I quit like all these like bad behaviors that I was using to hide my pain. And like, there's hope, there's happiness. there are still days like today. I didn't wake up today until 10:30, and I knew I had this meeting, but I woke up at 10:30. I laid in bed until 11. All my kids got in bed with us, and I just laid there. We hugged and chatted. Am I depressed? No. But did I need that moment? Yes. But 6 months ago, I would have berated myself for not getting out of bed at 7 a.m. and working out.
Got it.
So I'm making progress. I still have my days. I still, like last week, I had a panic attack on the kitchen floor because I have a hydroponic garden, and one of my kids like threw something on my budding plants. And sometimes I still have big emotions, and I just crumbled and had a panic attack because of my plans. And my husband was like, what's the real problem? Why are you feeling anxious? Because it's not about the plant. That's a symptom of your feelings. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just feeling anxious today. But I was PMSing and I started my period like 3 hours later. So even just my hormonal up and downs bring back that anxiety. But it's okay because there's hope, because it's not going to last forever. The darkness doesn't last forever, and there's always going to be light. And if you can just hold on and breathe and lean into where you are and give yourself a moment, give yourself a break, and seek help, reach out if you need to, but you have it within you to heal. You can save yourself. I saved myself in the sense that I didn't kill myself.
You also knew that you needed help, honey, and you got it.
I did.
Right? Yeah.
But I got help.
You did.
And help is okay.
Yeah.
And that's how I saved myself, is because I got help.
Yes. You did the work. You did.
It was hard work.
Yeah.
But being on this side of all of it, I'm so fucking excited to be 30, because I will never live that again.
Yes.
Because I healed, I did the work, and now I'm going to be 30 in 5 days, and I'm good. I'm going to be good. The 30s are going to be so good.
I want to just say something to you, my love. I am so blessed and honored to know you, as everybody is who's listening to this conversation, because of your authenticity and your willingness to share your experience, because that's a gift that many have a hard time giving, because it feels very exposing to share a lot of this stuff. I mean, I understand and I relate to it, because I also have been abused, and I also have had PTSD and all those kinds of things. And basically, my message is the same as yours, is that there's always a solution. There is always hope. In the moments that we're in, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But what I want to ask you before we go is, if you could say something to someone who couldn't take the noise in their head anymore, who cannot take those flashbacks, because, the people who listen here know that happened to my husband. So I am committed to any person out there who just doesn't know that things can get better. What would you say to them? And what would you say?
The thing that made me so angry in the middle of my chaos was, oh, honey, it gets better. Because how? How does it get better? Where do I go from here? Where do I go when my brain is literally trying to kill me? Where do I go?
Yes.
And I say, hold on. One more day, one more breath, one more. Because the flashback will end. You can go outside and put put your feet on the dirt, let the sun on your face. One more breath, and then pick up your phone and call somebody. Get help.
Yep.
Do what you can, but just one more breath.
Yep. Listen, what you're talking about right here, I had Kayla Steckline on my show, and her husband, she wrote the book Fear Gone Wild. And she talks about the suicide brain. And that brain is just what you just described. You're saying it. And the thing is that moment where you feel like you are not of benefit to anyone. There is no solution anywhere. It's just chaos, and it has to stop. And that's a real experience. And when you said my brain turned on me, did you say that? Is that what you said?
I said my brain was trying to kill me, but
yes.
Yes.
I want to tell you something. That right there is a thing. And people, nobody's talking about this. Kayla talks about it. And there's a man who talks about the suicide brain. And we have not fully done the research or really understand that the suicide brain, the person who is having that experience is not the person who commits the act. And that's why we don't call it committed suicide. We call it death by suicide. Because in that moment, it is something that almost takes over. Would you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. The person who was sitting in my room telling my husband, like, bye, honey, like, see you in the next life, that's not who I am.
Yep.
Yes. I am not. That's not me.
Yes.
I am life. I am happy. Yes. We joke about, I bring the party.
Yes. Whatever that is. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's like a delay.
Oh, no.
Whatever that is right there, anyone who can hear that or know that, you have to understand in that moment, we want to you're not even going to say the right thing to that person. But the fact that you, Kaz, are able to say, I know your brain at that moment. You have stepped into a land, love, that you can help so many people, and that is something that's much bigger than anything we could imagine. Because imagine being able to help someone with the suicide brain, with the brain that wants to kill them. Imagine that for a moment. Can you picture that? You are a firecracker. You're going to change the world. I can tell you that right now, if I have anything to do with it, because I want to have you come on again. The only reason that I have to stop is to have another podcast right after this. And they're going to be so mad at me but I would talk to you for the next 15 days because I think you have so much to offer. So where would people find you? I also want to say something. If you have kids and you want them to learn stuff, right there, Coach Kaz Gymnastics. She does this online, and it is the cutest thing ever. Go stand back there and show us what you do. Can you do that real quick?
I can. So typically I start my class sitting up there. We come back here. We do our exercises and stretches. I just have enough room to, teach our little handstands and our front rolls. So I show all of the skills to the kids. So I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to do a handstand. We're going to put our hands down. Look at our hands, jump. And the biggest thing, so this sign right here is like my slogan for my students, because learning online is hard. And sometimes like you see kids like kind of go like that, and they're like getting frustrated because they're like, I'm not doing it. And they're like, no. We're here for progress, not perfection. Learning is messy. We're here to learn. And that's what I've taken from my own life is learning is messy. We're here to learn. We're here to get better. That's why we have class, because you're not perfect. And we're going to learn and get better and better. And I've seen so much progress in so many of my students online. I have a student that has been with me for a year and a half. She started in my beginner class, and now she's in my advanced class doing things that like people are like, how did you even learn that at home? How do you even teach that at home? And to that, I just say, I know how to pivot, and I know how to take a step back and say, okay, So in person isn't going to work. How do I teach online?
Exactly.
Thankfully, I was given the gift of words, and I can say all of the words.
Yes.
And that's why, so we do see progress. We do see students learning. I have a lot of students who got their basic beginner like skills and have gone on to compete in like go to in-person gymnastics, and they compete. I have a student that just won first place in one of her gymnastics meets, and she started with me. And now she's in person. Now she's competing. I celebrate that. I celebrate my students and their wins. And it's my favorite thing to do.
So let me ask you quickly, where do you, where can they find you? Instagram? It's all going to be in the notes anyhow, but just where would they find you?
So I have my TikTok, which is Keziah Bussell. So it's just at Keziah Bussell.
At Keziah Bussell. KAZBUSSEL.
ELL.
Oh shit, sorry.
That's okay. So I talk a lot about my life on there. I'm actually starting a series today on my TikTok called Get Your Shit Together with Me. And I'm going to go through like, how am I going to get my shit together? Because we start school in a month. We homeschool. We start school in a month. And literally it's chaos at my house. How are we going to get our shit together? I'm starting that series today. And then my website, CoachCashGymnastics.com, I will have my live course or my courses that you can buy. They're pre-recorded courses. And I'm working on, if you're having trouble with the skill or your student is having trouble with the skill, you can send me a video and then I can give you corrections. And I will also, right after this, post a link to my OutSchool live classes on my website. So that you can find me on OutSchool as well.
I got to tell you, this right here is an incredible program, because one of the things that I think, and I am so late, but I'm telling you this right here is two things. One is when you are abused physically, anything with your body, the mastery that you're doing over your body, I feel like it's God. It's God has landed, because this command that you have over your body is an antidote for the command that other people have had. And I just love that about you. I also love that so many kids everywhere, I know I've seen that with my own kids in different ways, but are afraid to be a novice. And if you can be at home and you can have this instruction at home where you don't feel self-conscious, but this right here could help those kids who are struggling with self-esteem, or they can gain some of the skills before they're in an in-person, class with a bunch of people. I think it is an unbelievable avenue to help kids who have difficulty with that. And I love that. Right. So now listen, and I'm a homeschool mom. I've gone rogue, who, whatever. Right. Yeah. My kids are like, when I was like, you want to go back to school? They're like, it's like putting a domesticated animal back in the wild. All right. But anyhow, so we got to go, because I have the unbelievable Michael Burns coming on next. But anyhow, so Kaz, thank you so much for being on this show. You are just a doll. And I can't wait to watch what happens in your life, the more you become and who ends up coming under your wing. Anybody out there who has any questions or has any issues or is concerned about abuse or anything like that, please DM me, or I don't know how you feel about that. I'm not going to just flood her inbox. No, I'm just
just flood my, so my Instagram is also, I forgot to get to my Instagram, but it's Kaz at Kaz Opal. I'm going to change it to Keziah Bussell today so that it's all the same, so that all of my ads are the same. So I'll do that. I'm going to
change it. Good. All right. I got to stop recording, girl, because we got to go.